Welcome to the Mentor Studio, where today's thought leaders and leading entrepreneurs inspire and bring real-world ideas that help you take your career to levels you've only dreamed of. Now buckle in. Here's your host, Michael Silvers.
Hi, everybody. I'd like to welcome you. This is Michael Silvers with the Mentor Studio. I want to thank you so much. We have a whole group on live with us, and we obviously are also doing the podcast for today. As everybody knows, our mission is to take mentoring around the world to serve those that are underserved. And we're going to do that because we're not only going to help in our communities, but in April of 2022, we're going to start a world tour. We're going to start in London, and then we're going to go to communities around the world to take our mentors and serve those who are underserved and really make a difference. I've got a really special guest on tonight, but another one of my business partners and one of our mentors is going to do the introduction, but I'm going to give her a little bit of an introduction because I actually got this down now, Mary. And I also think that it's nice to know where people come from. And you've heard Mary before, everybody, because I've done interviews and it's been on the podcast. But Mary Glorfield, I worked with Mary for 10 years, Mary, I think?
I think that's right.
Yeah, 10 years. And we spent a lot of time together. And Mary Glorfield was Tony Robbins' executive vice president for 18 years. She did 4 million miles with Tony on the road, 3 million participants in 82 countries. So audience who's watching us right now, give that a round of applause. She also went on to a career with T. Harbecker and many others, booking most of the major stages in the U.S. absolutely until COVID. So, and she's going to continue on that journey. I learned so much from her every day. And I think because of the gentleman we have coming on, she is the perfect one to do the introduction. She's one of the best business partners I have ever had. She challenges me every day. She makes me look at everything that I do and take this to the next level and really to be of service. So without any further ado for this introduction, I'm going to turn it over to Mary Glorfield.
Thank you, Michael. Well, that's you're very kind. And I am so excited about our guest tonight, Joseph McClendon III. He's one of the most sought after ultimate performance specialists in the world. And his unique techniques rapidly trigger the personal change that effectively moves you to take more consistent action and go further, faster with your personal and business achievements. Joseph has delivered hundreds of workshops. I don't even know how many, but hundreds, coaching sessions, keynote addresses, seminars and training programs, one-on-one therapeutic intervention, and has presented to over 3 million people. I think it's probably more than that now, Joseph. His remarkable ability to go straight to the core of the challenge and affect rapid change makes him a unique commodity in business, health and wellness, and personal development. Joseph taught at UCLA for 7 years and is frequently called upon to lecture at other higher learning institutes like Harvard University and many Fortune 500 companies in the United States, as well as across Europe and Australia. Joseph has partnered with the world-renowned life coach Anthony Robbins, Tony, who we all know, for over 30 years. And you may have seen him train together with Tony at conferences, particularly Unleash the Power Within, which I think Joseph does at least half of it now. And Joseph has a mission of making you bold in your ability to achieve the life you desire and to help you go further, faster now. And I think one of the personal things that I admire most about Joseph is that I guess I've known you, Joseph, 28 years or so. We've had the opportunity to travel the world. And one thing that I think I can say this is the only person that I know like this, is Joseph has never said a negative thing about anyone in all those years that I have known him. And I think that speaks exactly who this man is. So I am thrilled to call him my friend and be able to introduce him to you tonight. And I know he's going to have so many really valuable things to teach you. So Joseph.
Yes, Mary, thank you so much. And Thank you. I see everybody waving their hands. Thank you, everybody. I love this. I live on Zoom these days, so I was sharing that with Mary. And I must dote on you for a minute first, because Mary, it has been probably closer to 30 years now that we've worked together, and you've been an integral part of my success and my growth as well. And for those of you who don't know Mary, she is, I just learned this term, by the way, she's the GOAT, the greatest of all times. And you've always held me to the highest of standards. You've always been somebody that will always shoot from the hip and tell me exactly the way that it is, tell me what I need to know. And you've been instrumental in my growth as well. So thank you so much. And Michael, thanks for having me on this call. And thank you, everybody, for sharing your precious time with me.
I'm honored to have both of you on. This is because, I take a look at, personal development journeys and how we follow our journeys and how our life changes. And mine was an introduction early on to, Bob Proctor, and then to T. Harv Eker. But I have every Tony Robbins right from way back because of the infomercials. And for those of us who are night owls, it hit us, right? Oh, who's this guy and what's he doing? And I've heard of Jim Rohn. And it was, and the world has changed now for everybody out there. And Joseph, it's what I want to talk about a little bit too. A lot of the people listening to this call are podcasters,
yes,
and people who are authors and are speaking. And it's like, well, I wanted to be a speaker, but now I'm going to be a podcaster, and now it's all going to be virtual. Can you talk a little bit about where you see the world going? Because you have been on the major stages, and now you've been on the major virtual stages, and talk a little bit about that and even some of the techniques it takes.
Yeah, well, first off, my hat is off to everybody for being willing to, you can call yourself but a podcaster. I say and a podcaster because that adds to your repertoire. In other words, you get good by doing. We get good we get good at presenting by presenting. And in these days, it is, as I said to Mary when she called me before this, I live on Zoom now. This is my 6th Zoom call today. And this is the way that the world goes. So to answer your question, Michael, what I believe is going to happen and is happening, yes, everything is virtual now. We just did a 40,000 person UPW virtual event about 3 weeks ago. But it's just a big Zoom call. It's just a big podcast. And so I'll be honest with you. It took me about an hour of my first one of those before I got into the rhythm of it. And the biggest difference is that just like now, when we're talking, if I say something, if I'm live and I say something to an audience, a live audience, there's going to be an audible and an energetic, immediate feedback. But on Zoom or on the virtual events, there isn't. So I had to get that timing down. But once that happened, it's just like doing anything else. And so what I'll say is this. I believe that even when things go to the new normal is going to be a mixture of virtual as well as live, because there are some things that are advantages to doing virtual. People don't have to leave their houses. They don't have to book a flight. They don't have to book a hotel room. It's a lot less expensive for both the presenters and the participants. The downside is you miss that energetic exchange, and you miss that camaraderie and that connection. And so I think there's going to be a bit of both. So to everybody listening, keep doing what you're doing. Do those. I just started doing podcasts when COVID hit. It was a blessing in disguise when it came around. It was just like, okay, well, now I get to do this. I'll say this. Sorry, I'm getting long-winded, but that's how I roll. All right. When COVID hit, I remember it. And Mary, some of the events were with you. I had events all the way into 2020. And Mary, you're right. It's probably getting close to 5 million people now that I've had the privilege of being in front of. And a lot of that has to do with that woman right there, because she would hire me and book me for gigs as well. Right before COVID hit, on average, I was in front of 15 to 20,000 people every single month. And I remember the day I was sitting right here at my desk. that I looked at my calendar, and I'd just gotten off the phone with the last person who canceled my last gig. I looked at my calendar, and for the first time in 30 years, it was empty, nothing. And I remember, and I'm saying this for everybody to get this, because I know, again, it's a long answer to your question, but I want you to get what happens here. Is when I looked at it, I will admit it, me, the great Joseph McClendon III, fear struck me, because I remember saying to myself, what am I going to do? And I thought for a second, everything that I do is gone. But because I practice what I preach, in other words, I have trained myself, and it's what I train other people to do, as Mary said, is to program themselves to default to their better self, to program themselves to that, what I call being optimistic, to start looking at your options. And so what happened was this thing came over me, and I remember sitting here at my desk, and all of a sudden I got this big smile on my face, and I jumped up, I ran into the bathroom, and I looked myself in the eyes, and I said, Joseph, what do we get to do now? And from that point on, it was about what we get to create. And, we've all become familiar with this term now, pivot. And I pivoted, and there were some challenges. And one of those pivots was doing this, was I started a podcast. I started because I knew that that is something that I wanted to build that skill set. So wherever you're starting, keep doing what you're doing.
It's fantastic. And it's so true. And by the way, don't worry about it. You can talk, because they hear me all the time. They are ready. And it was a difference for all of us, especially in that industry. And it was like the blank slate in a way, right? Mm-hmm. It's that blank slate effect. And now I can, after I get past, and we all have the fears. Did anybody else have a fear when it all happened? Raise your hand if you had a little bit of fear, or business wasn't going to go the way you thought. But it was a shift. And the other question that always comes up now that we've had this shift, and I've been training to be a speaker or a podcaster, I've been training to be on stage, the skills that are necessary, do you see those as different now? And can you talk about like a couple skills that every speaker, podcaster needs?
I think they're the same. And like I said, there's an adjustment in how you do something. I teach a presentation course, teaching people how to present from the stage. And I got to be honest with you, as I look at it, all of the principles hold true, whether it's video, whether it is podcast, whether it is whatever, all of the principles with regard to how to, and here's the difference, impact and influence people versus entertain and teach, because it's a huge, huge difference. And a lot of speakers, would-be speakers, they come to the stage as the authority. They come to the stage as, I'm going to teach you something. I'm going to impart my wisdom on you. And that's not, in order to do that effectively, you've got to impact and influence them to be receptive to that, to be receptive to taking on something. And as I always say, it's not a matter of me teaching you something. It's a matter of me finding out what you want, and then showing you how you can better achieve that. And as Mary said, my thing is further, faster. I always ask people, do you want what you want sooner rather than later? I've been doing this for a long time, and I haven't met one person yet that said, nah, I'll wait till later. Everybody wants what they want sooner or later. So there is a process. I'm fortunate in that I have had a lot of great mentors, obviously Mary and Tony. And I also, I went back to school and got my doctorate in neuropsychology. But to be honest with you guys, I did it because I got tired of having to explain what an ultimate performance coach is. Or I got tired of trying to explain what neurolinguistics is. So now when people ask me, what do you do? I say, I'm a psychologist. And then I can add the things to it. And quite honestly, all of those skills that I learned I'm certified in neurolinguistics, neuroassociative conditioning, traditional psychology, hypnotherapy, and all of those things, to be honest with you, I only use a handful of them to produce the results that I'm able to produce. And that's something I call encoding.
Fantastic. Thank you. And it's an important piece, because the audience, it's making the connection with the audience, right? And realizing yes. that the audience has all these different user representational systems. There's so many different ways, depending on what system you came from, to say, what's going on with the audience. or in a way, how you make that connection. And I know most of us on here, haven't been in audiences as large as that, as you have been in front of. Can you talk a little bit about, because we did this on one call a couple of months ago, I talked about the connection with the back of the room, and being able to, can you talk about, because it's still connecting with an audience. So if you could just share some pointers on how to connect with an audience, whether you're in 1,000, 10,000, I know it's a little different, I know that, but just some general concepts.
Yeah, and I'll take it one step further. I'll give everybody here an influence model. So get out your pad and paper and write this down. Now, and first off, as I start to say this, you're going to recognize that I've already done exactly what I'm getting ready to say. And that is, there's a reason why everybody, including Mary, who's heard me 60 billion times, is still listening to me right now. There's something inside of you that's going, okay, what's next? Okay, this guy's got something next. Now, and I hope I don't, I'm going to come off a little arrogant as I say this, because I'm going to assume a few things like what I just said there, that you're not necessarily hanging on my every breath, but there's a part of you that's going, I want some of what this guy's got to say. And that all comes from something called an influence model. And so at the top of your page, write influence model. And this model is something I teach, and there's so much more to it. And by the way, there's about 12 different ones, but this is one everybody can use. And it is something that I've used for a long time, especially impromptu or spontaneous when somebody asks, hey, Joseph, get up here and say a couple words or whatever. And so remember this first, that as Michael said, it's about connection. Connection is everything. Who cares if you got you're smarter than everybody out there? Who cares if you're the one on stage if you don't have connection? If you have connection, then you can move people. And again, I hope this doesn't sound arrogant. I get people to do some pretty crazy stuff, stand up and shake their asses and do all kinds of crazy stuff. But the reason they'll do it is because of what I'm about to share with you. So it's about connection. And so I want you to write on the left-hand side of your page, I want you to write these letters. I, the letter I. Then I want you to skip a couple spaces and then put L as in lion. A as in apple. S as in Sam. And then A as in apple. ILASA. And these are the steps. The first step is, remember, our whole outcome, if everybody can see me, I know we're in whatever mode, so I'm just a little pixel. I hope everybody can see me. Can you guys see me?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So watch this. And I just did it to you again. Here's what I'm trying to get everybody to do. And this is your operative. When you're in front of an audience, whether it is on Zoom, and I heard you say in the very beginning, Michael, you said, type of one, if you do this and that kind of thing. So response means connection. And our whole outcome is to get people to do this. Watch real closely. Because as soon as you have that, you have connection. A connection or rapport. People like themselves. And as soon as somebody goes like this, they're like you because they agree with you. And it's physical, and don't get me started on, there's so much more I could teach about it, but the physical body, you're releasing dopamine and all those things that are going on as soon as they're doing that. So that's what I watch for. And I'll gauge how well I'm doing before I can move to the next step of how many people I see doing this, whether it's Zoom or whatever. As I'm seeing, most of you right now are going, yeah, this makes sense, okay? And you can't help it because I'm tapping into your nervous system. So how I get you to do that is I tell you something that you cannot argue with. And the first thing that I tell you is called, the I stands for identification. Identification. And in that space, I want you to write, who are you and what qualifies you? And what that means is you tell them who you are. And if you remember, I already did that with you already. I'm going to try and go back and trace my steps, because I said to you that I have a doctorate in neuropsychology. I said to you that Mary, by the way, Mary did some of my identification, but I always will come back and do it myself because I want you to hear out of me. I said, you know, in front of 5 million people by now, blah, blah, blah. Me, all about me in this moment. Why? Because you can't argue with that. You're going, wow, this guy this. And I'm telling you who I am and what qualifies me to be talking to you. Regardless of the intro that was given, it's got to come out of your mouth. And this is one of the hardest things for speakers and presenters to do, because people don't like talking about themselves. You got to squash that, because it's important to get people to go like that, because they have to agree with you. They can't say, no, he's not this, she's not that. So when they're doing that, once you get that, then you move to the next step, which the L stands for logic and reason. Logic and reason means here's how things are and why they are the way they are. And then you just tell them what they already know. And I even will start off by saying, here's how things are. And I'll say things, if I'm doing a corporate event, for example, I'll do my homework. If I'm doing it for a software company or whatever, and that software company is, they create software for games, gaming, things like that. Then I'll say something, I will have done my research and I'll say, here's how things are. The gaming industry is flourishing right now because of COVID. The gaming industry is blah, blah, blah. And I'll say all these things. People go, well, yeah. And they'll have to agree again. And again, I'm just getting them to go like that. And every time I'm getting them to do that, what am I getting? More connection. Now, again, because of time, I won't go into it, but there's an energetic exchange. And when I say energy, it's a very real thing. It's not unicorns and crystals and rainbows. And so that energetic exchange, because they're going like this, okay, this guy knows, yes, and I agree with him. Now, once I have that's 60% of connection. Once I have that, then the A stands for attack and confess. And here's the hardest part. I shouldn't say the hardest part, but it's another hard part, because now you have connection with these people. They like you, you like them, you got an energetic exchange. And the last thing that you want to do is to break that. But please, everybody, write this down. An undisturbed client will not buy. Now, I'm not just saying throw out the money. I mean, they don't buy what you're saying as well. You got to disturb them a bit, because it's really easy to keep going on like that. And we've heard that. We felt good and we've walked away. My outcome always in any kind of presentation is to make sure that you do something. And we're doing it right now. I'm getting you to do something right now. And I promise you at the end, I'm going to ask you to do something when I leave. That's my outcome, because that's when you're going to get the results. And this is one of the biggest difference between a speaker and a presenter and somebody that influences. So you attack them. And here's the reason why you attack them. Okay, so I have this ink pen here. Everybody watch. And this is my favorite ink pen. Mary Glorfield gave me this ink pen. It's a magical ink pen. And everything that I write with it comes true. And this ink pen for 30 years. And I want you to have it. And I give it to you. I put it in your hands. And you accept this gift. Now you have gotten a gift from me, after you've already got this connection from me. And you now are attached and energetically connected to this ink pen. And then if I turn around and take that ink pen away, what do you want? You want the damn ink pen back, right? So the reason you attack them is you've given them the gift of connection. You've given them the gift of your rapport and them agreeing with you and all of those things. And they like you and they like what you have to say already. And they like what you represent already. But you take it away by attacking them, leaving them to go, I want that back. I want the gift back, just like the ink pen. I know that's just a metaphor, but I want you to stay with me energetically. Now, how you attack them is you do your homework and you find out what their faults are. And I might say things like this. We all want more and all those things, but here's what you've done. You've procrastinated. You said you were going to do something and you didn't step up and do it. You got afraid of something. You didn't follow through on something. Now, in this moment, I'm taking the ink pen back. Now, Mary has seen me do this, and I will literally get hostile on stage. I call it my angry badger. I'll turn on him in a moment. Put on my angry face, and I'll point at him, and I'll go after him. And the reason I'm doing this is I want to disturb them. And the reason being is I want to break that rapport. So now there's that scotoma, that blank space. A scotoma is It's a psychological term. It just means there's that space in your brain, and I've broken that pattern. And now they're going, what? And they're empty in that moment. And then guess what I do? I give it back to them. I give them the pin back by confessing. Remember, it's attack and confess. And I confess by saying, it's not your fault, and I've done the same thing. And in that moment, I may tell a story. I may say, I've done this, I've done that, blah, 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 the same as you. And then they go, oh, I got the ink pen back. I like him again. He's just like me. He's done the same thing. But in the back of their mind, they know I have teeth. In the back of their mind, they know that I can hurt them emotionally. I know this sounds mean, but okay, now I'm exposing myself, and I want you to know, because my outcome, as Mary said earlier, is I want to make sure that I am having a part in creating as many great mentors, teachers, presenters, coaches, and things like that as possible, so that we can all make this world a better place. We need people like you. We need more people like this. And so once I've done that, then guess what? They're hanging on my every word. They're hanging there because because unconsciously they know they don't want to feel. And by the way, that's the worst pain, the emotional pain that people can feel. And that is the fear of loss, fear of rejection. And so I've tapped into that by taking it away from them. I rejected them. Somebody they like, I rejected them. So now I have that back. Now it's easy. Now the S stands for solution. And in the solution, what you do is this isn't the part where you pitch your product. You tell them, okay, so the solution is to find a way to eliminate procrastination from your life, to eliminate, and whatever you attacked them for in the past. The solution is to have a step-by-step process that's going to give you processes to be able to be the best mentor, teach, coach, presenter that you can have, so that you don't ever have to fall into that again, and to condition yourself so that you automatically default to that most powerful you. Now, I'm looking at the few people that I see right now, and most of you are going like this. This is the shit. I want this. Yeah. Okay. Because I haven't even told you what I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to sell you something today, but I haven't even told you what I'm going to give you. I just gave you the solution, right? And again, you're going like this. And then the A, I know I'm going through this quickly, but I want you guys to have this. The A stands for assume the sale. And assume the sale doesn't mean you sell them something in that moment. It means you get them to do something physically right now. Because this is when you get them, and this is how I can get people to stand on their chairs to do whatever I want them to do. Because I asked them, and I've done it with you. I'm retracing my steps. I said, get out a pen and paper and write this down. And it can be as simple as that, writing something down. Because now you're physically responding to my suggestions. If it's live, I'll tell them, stand up. If it's live, I'll tell them, put a smile on your face, take a deep breath, whatever, as long as I've got them to physically do something. Now, that took me 10 minutes to go through, but you can go through that process in 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. You can go through that whole process. And then you start your presentation. And then they're hanging on your every word. And then you tell them, okay, well, here's what we're going to learn today. And by typing a 1, I want to see how many of you have that level of urgency about doing and curious about what I'm going to talk about, what Michael said for me to talk about when we finish this Q&A. How many of you are curious into what I want? Look at those ones light up. Okay?
Look at those ones.
Yeah. And the reason being is because I used that process. I used that process that I just said to you. So again, Mike, long answer, but you asked.
No, I love it. This is so perfect. And so Zoom, you're so much better with the ad spotlights. But that was great because look, Joseph, they hear us all the time, and this is what they want their teeth. They want to sink their teeth into this. And you just gave them a process in, it was less than 10 minutes that they can actually immediately go out and start using. Yeah, that they can actually and get the training and get the education, but it's about action now, right? Because we are opening back up, things are happening, and you gave them a model that works all the time.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of 12, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Such great content. I have a quick question for you, Joseph. I've put you on stages with 20,000 people in the room, and those people were such a diverse group of people. And the reason I always wanted you to be the first person on stage was because you set up the day, you set up the expectation, you created the energy or something in the room that people wanted to stay, whether they came to see Tony or they came to see another celebrity or something. You set the day, and how do you do that? How do you create that?
Part of it is what I just taught you. The other part of it is my absolute dedication to making a difference in people's lives. And what I mean by that is whether I'm the first person or the last person, what my promise to myself is, and I say this to myself, it's in my preparation before I go out there, that I now command my unconscious mind to give me the power, the wit, the strength, the recall, the love, the tenacity, the passion, the humor, everything that I need to give these people 10,000 times more than they came for, so that they walk out of here with not just to be inspired and feel good, but they do something, they change their lives, and in turn, they change other people's lives as well. And that is my purpose when I go out there on stage. And as hokey as that might sound, that lives inside of me, and that's the other part of it. The energetic part of it is that I'm gonna set those people up to have the best day of their lives, whether I'm going to do all day or whether I'm just on in the very beginning to set it up for the day. I want them to know that I want them to feel good. I want them to be impacted and influenced, so that they're open for everything in that day.
It's magical what you create, Joseph. And I mean, very few people have that kind of skill that can do that. And I know a lot of it comes with experience and practice and prep. And I do know you prep. Is there any specific thing? I mean, I know how Tony preps to go on stage. Is there something you do right before you go on to get, other than what you just said?
There's two types of prep. There is the external, meaning prepping for the event and for them, studying them, and all that I said before. I don't take that willy-nilly. I'm going to do my homework on the audience that I'm talking to. And not just because I'm getting paid for it, that's one reason I want to deliver that. But like I said before, I want to impact people's lives and let's make a difference. So I'll do my homework on them. But then I'll also, without fail, I always, let's just call it incantation that I just said, I now command my unconscious mind. That's my prep for me, that I never fail before I go on stage. And I'll tell you something, and Mary, you've been around, with me for so many of these, and we've had the privilege of being with so many amazing people, from Les Brown to Richard Branson to, you name it, all of those people. And it has been my experience that, and all of them, otherwise they wouldn't be there, are amazing. And it's been my experience that I don't see them prepping like that. Not that mine is any better. Everybody has their own way. And at the risk of sounding arrogant, I'm going to be one of the, if not the most dynamic person that walks on that stage. That's just, and part of it is because of the energy that I bring to the stage, because I did what I said. I prep myself by saying those things, moving my body, and getting myself in preparation. In my presentation course, I teach people to do that, so that when I walk on stage, I'm already there. Versus I watch a lot of other people walk on stage and they have to go halfway through their presentation before they're on. And me, I'm on before I walk on stage. And I do it on purpose. And I, again, at the risk of sounding too cosmic, I believe that they feel me before I walk on stage. I make it a point that they do. Michael, you said something earlier, that person at the very back of the room, there's a very specific thing that I do in addition to that influence model. I say this, Mary, you've heard me say this a ton of times. Everything that I do from this point forward, everywhere I stand, everywhere I say, everything that I say, every gesture that I make has a reason and a purpose. And yes, a lot of it has been time in the saddle, but it can be learned. And so I do something called marking the audience. I'll pick people out and I'll play to those people. I will send my energy out, all of those things. And lastly, I'll say this. Mary mentioned that I taught at UCLA for several years. Well, the course that I taught, and I just heard from him a couple of days ago. Do you remember Terry Schmidt?
Yeah.
He just called me a couple of days ago. I wrote the forward for his new book. But anyway, Terry was a professor at UCLA, and I didn't have my degree then. And Terry invited me to speak at one of his classes. And I went in there doing what I do. And the course was to engineers and managers. Only about 20% of them were undergrads. The rest of them were adults, 35 and above, from the private sector. And they were engineers. So they were like super smart, 100 times smarter than me. And they were super, super smart. And so I went in there, did my thing. And then the dean, his name was Dean Anderson at the time, got wind of it. And he said, let's bring this guy back. And so Terry called me up and he said, they want you to come back and teach. And I said, teach what? I didn't know anything to teach to these engineers. And they said, at the time, this was, I want to say early 90s. And I remember that was when there was that new term called downsizing came about and people were in re-engineering. So I made up a course called Re-Engineering Yourself for the Next Century. And I taught a full semester. And I did it because it looked good on my resume that I taught at UCLA. And at the end of it, they said, well, we want you to keep on teaching. And I said, I don't think so. I don't want another job. And so what wound up happening is I started doing what are called extension courses. So every 6 months, I'd come back and do like 3 weeks. But it was still to these engineers. And the reason I share this with you is because these engineers, you can't fake it with engineers. You got to be spot on. You got to have facts. You got to explain things down to the nth degree. And one of the things that I teach is something that I call magnetic. I call being a magnetic megapreneur. It's not the laws of attraction. It is the physical laws of magnetism, how to magnetize yourself, how to bring those things into your life, situations, circumstances, even material things. And this was something that I was teaching them, which is the energetic side of what I just taught you. You're becoming an energetic magnet to those people out there. They're attracted to you. You want them and they want you. And where are my magnets? Okay, watch this. Oh, you're going to love this. Oh, you are going to love this. Okay, now watch this. And set aside, everybody, the concept of the laws of attraction, because I don't want you to get hung up in that. I know probably most everybody on this call right now has heard of The Secret and the laws of attraction and all that stuff. It's very real stuff. And it's a 5,000-year-old philosophy with very, very little methodology. If you ask 1,000 people, what are the laws of attraction? They go like this. Well, it's what I think about is what I bring about. And they guess at it and they made up, which means they don't know. Okay, so watch this. When I'm finished with this that I'm about to tell you, now, by the way, I'm doing an influence model on you right the freak now. When I'm finished what I'm about to tell you, your head is going to explode and you're going to go, well, of course. Okay, now I just set you up, right? Now I'm going to follow through. Now, magnetism is this. I just taught you, it is the process that I just taught you. Is it clear to everybody? Type of 1 if it is. That what I taught you to do is for you to have energy by your expectations for other people. Type of 1 if you agree with me on that. Because you cannot do what I just said without having energy, okay? Type another 1 if you understand that what you're causing them is to have energy, even if it's just in the form of urgency, okay? Now watch this. I'm going to prove it. I'm going to prove it 3 times, but the first time I'm going to prove it in a way that you can argue with, and that is this. Type of 1 if you've ever done this. You're sitting in your car and you feel somebody looking at you, and you look over and there they are looking at you. Type of 1 if that happens to you. Everybody. Type of 1 if this has happened to you. You're sitting in your car, windows are rolled up, and you maybe see an interesting or an attractive person or whatever, and you look at that person and they feel you, and then it's you looking at them and they catch you. Type 1 if that happens to you. Okay. Now watch this. And if you don't believe me, the reason I told you about the engineers is because I had to prove this stuff to them. It's something called Carillion photography. Go on YouTube and look up Carillion photography and you'll see what I'm talking about. That when you put your attention and intention on somebody else, 4 things happen. Your electromagnetic energy grows. The second thing that happens is they feel it. The third thing that happens is their electromagnetic energy grows. And the fourth thing that happens is you become drawn towards each other. That drawn towards each other is called magnetism, okay? Now watch this. I've got 2 very powerful magnets here. They're super powerful. Okay, now watch this. They're magnets, but if I go like that, they're always, this is not the laws of attraction, this is the law of magnetism. One magnet attracts another magnet, okay? All the time. Go like that if that makes sense. All right, stay with me on this because your head's about to explode. Okay, now watch this. This is an ink pen. Okay, this ink pen has a steel clip on it. Now watch this. Okay, right here, nothing. Why? Because this is not magnetized. If I put it up against it, it's going to stick to it, but I can shake it off. It's not a very strong bond. This is not a magnet, even though it's steel, it's not. Now, how do you make a magnet? Anybody know? Okay, glad you asked. You bombard iron with electrons, with electricity. What is electricity? Energy. You bombard it with energy. And as soon as you do it enough times at enough intensity, it becomes a magnet. And that's the way that it is. And so here's my point. Okay, here's my, or one of my points. So first off, everybody get that? So when you look at somebody else and you put your attention and intention on somebody else, guess what you're doing? You're doing 2 things. You're bombarding yourself with energy. You're creating energy from within. Electromagnetic energy. You can see it on Carillion photography. You glow with it. Where does it come from? It comes from you. You have your muscles are piezoelectric cells, which means they create and store electricity. So when you go like this and your heart gets beating faster and you start creating more electromagnetic energy, when you put that energy on somebody else, guess what happens to them? They start growing it within inside of them. So now you're both magnets. But watch this. Here's the fun part, okay? Now here's these 2 magnets. Now watch this, okay? So no matter what, as soon as I get close enough to it, they're gonna do that every time. But watch this. If I turn this one over and I reverse the polarity, it's gonna push it away. See it? It's gonna push it away. No matter how. Even if I push them together and I hold them together, watch what happens. And it's always gonna be that way, okay? The reason I share that with you is this. The flipping of the magnet is within ourselves, doubt, uncertainty, worry, all of that stuff. That's your psychology. And so you got to get your psychology right. How I get mine right, I say it. I'll say it again. I now command my unconscious mind to give me the power, the wit, the strength, the recall, the love, the tenacity, the passion, the humor, everything that I need to give these people 10,000 times more than they came for, so that they walk out of here with not something that's just going to change their lives, but it's going to change other people's lives as well. When I say that, the movement that I'm doing and I'm changing my psychology because I've said it so many times. Guess who believes it? Me. And if I believe it, then they're going to believe it. Magnetism. Oh, there's so much more I could teach you. Now, type of 1, if your brain went,
This is Joseph. We could be on all night long with you. This audience would never leave. I'm telling you right now.
I love you for it.
And what you just taught them, it's great because it's a simple concept. At the same time, that's one of the most powerful on the planet. And it just I want to thank you for your time with us. I want to leave a little time for Q&A because it is not about Mary and I. It's really about this community and this community of people who are on this journey with us to get mentoring out to those that are less fortunate. So I honor them. And are you okay for 15, 20 minutes of Q&A?
Absolutely. You don't scare me.
I try not to. I'm going to take the spotlight off everybody right now, remove all spotlights. And if you want to see now everybody back in a regular view, everyone, you just hit the gallery view again. It brings everybody back. It's your top right-hand corner. Yes, Mary, were you raising your hand or just playing with your screen?
No, I was just taking a drink of water.
Oh, good. I like that. That's good. All right. So to honor Joseph's time and, of course, all of your time, if you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand. Now, what I'd like to do is the question, if you ask a question, right, don't ask a question. Well, let's see. As I was working on this today, so your 5-minute story is going to take away question times from everybody else. If you could literally ask a question in 20 seconds or less, about what was today or a concept or something covered, that would be great. So just go ahead and raise your hand. I'll start picking you guys out of there go the hands, and that will put you up on my board. And we will start with, and if you can't find your hand, it's okay. Michael, you were the first one up. And hold on, I got to let you guys unmute yourself. So, okay, now you can. Michael, you're on.
Blessings, Joseph. Thank you for allowing us to share this beautiful space with you. One question that I have that I love that you shared that even causes confusion in me. So basically you said about magnetism, and I love how you showed up, but I do my best to always stay humble. How do you stay humble with that incredible confidence? Because that's where I'm really, really struggling with.
Yeah, that's a great question, Michael. I don't say that. I'm saying this to you guys because we're in the industry, but I don't say or come off that way to other people. In other words, I'll say that in my dressing room, I'll say those things to myself in my dressing room, and then I mellow out. As a matter of fact, it was Richard Branson said to me one time, he came to me, he goes, "How are you always so relaxed?" Because I literally am ready to go to sleep before I go on stage. So I'll do all that work and then I'll mellow out. I'm a pretty intense person, but I can turn it on and off. And so it's something that I would encourage you to do. This is I'm not going to say don't worry about it. I can tell this about you already. There's just arrogance is not part of who you are. So stop worrying about you being arrogant and do the work before you go on stage, and then just be yourself. It'll come out that way. And because if you start worrying about it, then guess what? You get nervous about it and things like that. Right. Do you worry about being arrogant when you're talking to your loved ones? Yes or no? No. Okay. So working with an audience is the same thing. You're not thinking about that. If you prepared yourself, then you get to relax into that place and you just walk out and have a conversation with them.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. That's great. All right, Brenda. And you guys can introduce yourself, by the way.
Hey, Joseph, I'm Brenda. Thank you for having me. That was beautiful. It was a great way to drive.
My pleasure.
When you were talking about the new normal and we're going to be seeing more, virtual continuing, how are you splitting your attention and making sure that if there's a hybrid at-home audience while you also have a live audience? With that, how do you maintain that connection with a hybrid audience where you have some that are going to be attending online versus others that are there? Because I know being on stage, we can kind of tend to default to the people that are in the room with us.
Yeah, it's no different.
Okay.
In other words, for me, the difference was in me. When I walked out on that stage for the very first virtual, and I hadn't really done hardly any Zooms before I went there and did that. And I think that was about 12,000 people, which was still a pretty substantial group of people. The thing that got to me the most was I would say something and nobody would clap or nobody would say anything back. And that was a little unnerving because I had to go, and then it would throw me off. But once I got it, that it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. I just keep on going. Look, you guys are not clapping for me now, and the only thing that I'm seeing you go is go like this, all right? So that's all that I watch. And I just assume the sale. I assume if I've gone through the process, I assume that they're right on board. And because that's where my energy comes from, then that's where they are as well. Now, I have done hybrids where there's people sitting in an audience right there, but I'm also talking to a screen as well. Then it's just an extra added attraction. I still just go on. I talk to a camera the way that I'm talking to an audience.
Fantastic. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Brenda. Sally.
Hi, how's it going?
Hi, Sally.
I totally connect to the COVID and not having any work to do, because that's what happened to me, and my whole life shifted. And I call myself now the self-care rock star. Nice. Because I started taking care of myself for the first time in probably 30 years. Mm-hmm. But I just wanted to ask, what was your first win going back that gave you the confidence to keep going?
I'll tell you the story very, very quick. I think Mary was there. Matter of fact, yes, I know you were. We were in Australia, and I think the year had to be like 95 or 96 or something. And at the time, just a little bit of history, I wrote, matter of fact, it's the book on the wall behind me. I wrote a book with Tony, but my agreement with Tony was I would write the book. He would, we wrote it as a co-write, but I had to write the book and do all the work to get it done. And my agreement with him was he would do it with me. He would put his name on it, but I had to come and work with his then wife, Becky, as the head trainer for the organization, training the organization, because I did have my master's at the time in psychology. So, there was a group of, at the time, probably 50 or 60 trainers, and I would go to every single event, and I would be there. And I was never on stage. I was just there running the trainer organization. And then one day, it was at a UPW, we were in Australia, I get a phone call at freaking midnight. And it was midnight, and whomever was going to do day number 4 couldn't do it. And Tony was getting on a plane and getting the hell out of there. And so Tony, and by the way, what was her name? Deb Hines.
Deb Hines, yeah.
Yeah, Deb Hines.
Perez, yeah.
Perez later. So Tony called me up and he goes, Joseph, I need you to do day number 4 for me. Now, I'd seen day number 4 100 times, but I'd never taught it. And I'd never been in front of that stage. And I said, Tony, I need you to kiss my ass because I'm not doing it. No, I'm not. I'm not prepared for it. And he goes, we'll get you prepared. And Deb was there, and we'll get you prepared. We'll get you all the stuff and everything. And so finally I agreed to do it. And I stayed up all night long. Now, I had never, ever presented anything like that before. Now, I was a musician, so I did have a bit of, I was an entertainer for a little while, but I'd never done anything like that. It was apples and oranges. So I stayed up all night long, didn't get any sleep. And I hit that stage the next morning, and I was certain, because I'd done all my prep, and I was ready to go. I walked on stage, and as soon as I walked out there, those Aussies, and if there's Aussies on the line now, thank you for being dicks. Because here's what they did. As soon as I walked out there, and I just knew they were going to love me, they stood up and started to leave. Some of them were literally flipping me off as they were walking away. We didn't come here to say, that's my Aussie accent. We came here to see Tony. We didn't come in here to see you, even though Tony wasn't going to be there anyway. The next day I think it was Deb Russell or somebody else that would do that. But what I realized was he didn't tell him he wasn't going to be there. And I wasn't a cute girl. And they hated me. And so, to answer your question, Sally, here was my win. I knew what I just taught you. And I also knew something called neurolinguistics and neuroassociative conditioning. I knew the value of interrupting a pattern. If something is going a certain way, you got to interrupt that pattern. So what I said to them, and I still use this to this day, by the way, because he's oftentimes still doesn't tell them that I'm going to be on and he's not, they were standing up and they were leaving in droves. At the top of my lungs, I said, hey, stop right where you are. I know what you're doing. And I put on my angry face. And I said, you're judging me right now. You're looking at me right now and you're judging me, and you were expecting a 6'7" white guy, and now you got a 5'9" black guy, and you're looking at me and you're judging me, and you're looking at me and you're going, look at him. He's amazing. Oh my God, he is amazing. He's handsome. And I started joking with him, because what I did was I interrupted their pattern. And once I got them laughing, and I said, listen, I know you were expecting him, but I promised you, if you sit down, I'm going to blow your mind. And they came back, and that was the biggest win for me, because that taught me in that moment to take control of the stage. It's not up to them. You know, you're going to get hecklers, you're going to get people that dislike you, you're going to get all that stuff and everything, but you got to take control. And then I went into what I just taught you, and it's been, I'm not going to say it's been smooth sailing since then, but I know how to work with an audience now. So that was one of my biggest wins.
Wow, that's great. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you, Joseph. Seen you a number of times. Really enjoyed it each time.
Thank you, David.
You mentioned something called marking an audience.
Yes.
I've heard people, I think it was Bo Eason said he goes in a few hours before an event and he touches every chair and points to the corners of the room. He calls that marking the room. So what do you mean by marking the audience? He wants to get his energy out there.
Yeah, that's one way. There's two different aspects. Remember what I said before, that I'm trying to remember the saying, but your energy enters the room before you do. And so I'm a big stickler for my brain and my body can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not when I vividly imagine it, and nor can anybody else's. And so using that same concept that I said, when you feel somebody looking at you in the car, I'll look at them before I even see them. I don't have to see them. I imagine when I'm in my dressing room, I imagine a room full of people, and I'll see them. I'll send them my energy. I'll send them my love and all that stuff and everything. And I believe that affects them. I believe that they're expecting me before I get there. Once I get on stage, there's a process that I do that I literally will speak to. I'll pick out 6 or 7 people in the audience. And there's a system that I go through of directing my attention, energy, and comments to those 6 people in succession. And it causes just a flurry of energy. And I know it's, a long answer to your question, short answer to your question, but there's just 2 different ways. I mark them before I go out there, and then I mark them when I'm out there.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Great. We're going to take one more question for tonight, and then we'll have a feedback loop for other questions. We'll have a call, and we'll make sure we get it to Joseph too. We'll take it from, I'm just spinning the wheels on this one. Let's give it up to Tim.
Thanks, Mike and Joseph. Wow, that was awesome. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind maybe stepping your story back from the one you had answered with Sally, and just give us a little bit more of how you got into the business, maybe met Tony, and sort of your journey that got you to where you are today from before your big breakthrough with Tony and getting on stage.
Yeah, well, I'll start here. The reason I do what I do is because somebody did it for me. And I made a promise to somebody almost 40 years ago. And what happened, longer than 40 years ago. When I was 17 and a half years old, 3 grown men tried to take my life because of the color of my skin. And it wasn't just the beating, and they tried to kill me, literally, I'm not exaggerating, but the things that they said to me while they were doing it, I was, and I'm a small man now, I'm only 5'9", and I was 17, so I was smaller then. And these guys, the things that they said to me destroyed my, I get emotional about it now, destroyed my self-esteem, my self-worth, all those things. And I became homeless. I wound up living in a cardboard box behind an old drive-in theater. And what changed my life was somebody that I didn't know gave me a book. And the book was called Think and Grow Rich. And he insisted that I read the book. Now, I was desperate, and I want everybody to hear this. I didn't just read the book. I did what the book said. And this is critical because a lot of people have read the book. And I've read the book, by the way, from the time I was 19 to the time I was 35 years old, at least once a year. But the reason I share that with you is my life started to change because I started to understand some very basic things. Now I've developed it into something that I call neuro encoding, which is the teaching of everything that I know now to help people make those changes quickly. But the reason I share that with you, and to answer your question, part of my journey was I went back to that man and I said, how do I repay you? You've changed my life, and how do I repay you? And what he said to me, he said, Joseph, you repay me by doing the same thing that I've done for you, for as many people as you possibly can for the rest of your life. And I was 19 at the time, and I didn't take it that serious then. But as time went on, and I started to realize that I'd been given a gift. And I've honed that gift, that skill of helping people, at the very least, program themselves so that they automatically default to their best selves. And so that was 10 years before I met Tony. And that journey that I was on there was to first physician heal thyself, was to help heal my wounds. And I realized a couple things, that people around me that don't have what I have, and I like the way that you said it in the very beginning, Michael. You said that people that are underserved. It doesn't mean that they're poor financially. It doesn't mean that they're anything other than they have not been served this hot dish of personal development that we have. They're not there. And so to be able to first off, I'm fulfilling that promise that I made to him. And combined with the laws of magnetism, it's not that I came into Tony's life, and this is going to sound arrogant. Tony came into my life. The stars lined up that I met him at that particular time, and I'm sure he'll concur with me that we needed each other at that time. Probably me more than him, obviously, but I believe that even this call that we're on right now, I take every call, every interaction, every presentation very, very seriously. That this call that we're on right now, that at the very least, my sincerest wish is that something that I have said, or something that you've learned through me, through Michael or Mary, does something to make even just a little bit of a shift in your life, whether it's just a story or whether it's whatever. And in that shift, those of us that dare to dream while the rest of the world is having a nightmare, and they are, you know that, we're not only going to create the abundance that we want in our own lives, but the greatest part about it is that we become beacons of possibility for the masses. And in that way, because it's not going to be our government, I don't care whatever country you're in, it's not going to be our government that changes things. It's going to be bold, beautiful people like yourselves on this call that make a difference in people's lives by having the guts to step up and do something different. Long answer to your question, but that's part of my journey.
Joseph, so you had the vision of going. I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, Tim. Sorry.
Just to summarize. So when did the vision of going national? When the vision that you had something that you wanted to share?
That's a great question. To be honest, when I met Tony, my goal was to be a musician. I had no intention of doing what I was doing. I knew that my path for impacting people was through music. I was a singer-songwriter. My goal was to get a recording contract. And so I was trapped. I had a psychological challenge. And the psychological challenge was I was raised with an amazing father who taught us that you've got to stay in school and keep a good job. You've got to get your degree if you're going to make any money at all and you're going to have a life. And so being an artist didn't fit with that picture. So I was battling disappointing my father, but then following my dream. And I gotten my master's. I'd already, stayed in school, and I stayed in school even after I got my degree, and I couldn't quit my job. I was a dental technician. I was playing music. I was doing all this stuff and everything. And by the way, when I was in school, everybody should know this. When I was in school, they taught us that a traditional phobia would take anywhere from 3 to 5 years to help somebody get over. And I went to Tony's seminar and I watched him take somebody that had like a fear of heights or whatever, and she was over it in an hour. I said, well, if that works for her, I know I got a phobia. And I took it upon myself to study neurolinguistics at the time, did it on myself, got rid of my fear, quit my job, got a recording deal with CBS Records it took me about 2.5 years. And that went all the way through to 1991 when CBS, we made the records, we did all that stuff. CBS was taken over by Sony and my deal got locked in there. And it was in that moment, to answer your question, that it was kind of like COVID. I thought, well, what am I going to do? But like I said, I practice what I preach. And so whenever strain, whenever stress, whenever anything shows up in my life, there's something that comes over me that says CTFD. No, I should say STFU. Shut the freak up.
Didn't we type that to you?
Yes, but it had a different meaning there. Yes. And when I say the freak, I mean that yak inside your head going, you can't, and there's something wrong with you, and everything's going to be loose. And so I automatically defaulted to that place, and I thought, oh, wait a minute, I still get to be a musician. And Mary knows this. My mom got really sick at that time and everything. I still get to be a musician, and there's that Robbins guy who's been bugging me about coming to work with him. So I called him up, and that's when I called him and made the suggestion of making the book. And then from there, it just grew. It just grew, and I started to realize that, okay, this is my opportunity. Well, first it was from the book, because I wanted to write the book because I wanted to impact my Black friends who were going, Joseph, because my first win was in real estate. I went out and I bought a bunch of houses. This house that I'm in right now is my 32nd house. I was just looking at that today. And and I did all those things so I could support myself playing music. But when I started becoming, doing well, my Black friends would always go, well, Joseph, what are you doing? And I go, what do you mean? What am I doing? And they go, well, you're becoming successful. Teach us. And I go, okay, well, I read these books. I go to these seminars. I do these things. And a lot of them would say the same thing. Well, we can't trust those white people. We can't relate to those white people. And I'm going, who cares what color they are? It doesn't matter. The knowledge is still there. And so that's why I wrote that first book. The book is called Unlimited Power of Black Choice. And I wanted to bring this information, and did bring it into the Black community. So it started there. And then from there, one thing after another, being on stage, and started to do things. And I started to realize that I'm fulfilling that promise that I made to the man that gave me Think and Grow Rich. And it just blew up from there.
Joseph, you are amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I so appreciate it. I know everybody does. I'm watching some of the comments about you, and
thank you.
That you are amazing. And there's so many stories I would love for you to tell, the motorcycle story and just on and on. I could listen to you all night, even though I've heard you so many times. And magnetism, this man, I've watched you get on a plane, and I get on a plane and I want to go straight to my seat, sit down, and not talk to anybody. Joseph gets on and goes, hey, how you doing? What are you doing? Who are you? I mean, it's like,
I'm that guy. Yeah.
You are that guy for sure. Yeah. But everybody loves you the moment they meet you. So it's just, to me, it's amazing. I'm grateful. I'm grateful to you, and grateful that I can call you my friend. And
you as well, Mary.
If anybody wants more information about you, how can they get in touch?
The easiest way now is Instagram. My Instagram is I am Joseph McClendon. And I'm learning to be there. I just looked at it today, and it's a COVID thing. I didn't really start Instagram until COVID, and but now I post a couple videos every day. I'm always teaching something. I have something on there that everybody here will absolutely enjoy, and it's free. I'm working with. Are you familiar with Dr. Amen? Dr. Daniel Amen. Mm-hmm. Daniel and I have created something called the Brain Revolution Summit. It's absolutely free. If you go, you can either go to my Instagram and click on the link below my profile, and you'll see it. It says the Brain Revolution Summit, or you can go to Brain Revolution Summit, and it's on the 10th of April. And we're just going to download. In case you don't know, Dr. Amen is the world-renowned expert on brain scans. And matter of fact, if you go there, you'll see he scanned my brain. And I know we're closing up here, but I want to share this with everybody so you know how important this is, because we created this thing. He's the hardware. He's going to show you how that organ called your brain works and how to make it better. And then I'm the software. I'm going to teach you how to program it. It's something I call encoding. And it's spectacular. Help people, like I said, program yourself so that you automatically default to your best you. And but I went in, and you can watch, we did like a little documentary where he lives. I'm in Newport Beach, and his office is here as well. And so he invited me to come and get my brain scan. And I'll be honest with you, when I first went in there, I was a bit apprehensive because I had brain damage, literally, from when those guys beat me up, and a couple of other incidents as well. And I knew I was going to do well on the cognitive part because I know how to manipulate my brain, if you will. And I did. But when they scanned my brain, they literally take a picture of your brain in the inside. You can see it. I was expecting him to go, and we have this on video, by the way, because if you go to the Brain Revolution, you'll see that we did sort of like a documentary of myself getting my brain scan. And I was really nervous, and I was close to tears because I knew that he was going to look at my brain and go, how are you standing up? How are you walking upright? You know, how are you doing anything at all with a brain as damaged as yours? But to my delight, now I'm 67 years old. And he looked at my brain and he said, Joseph, first he goes, Joseph, look at this. And this was a good brain. And he says, and look at this. There's almost no difference. He says, you have the brain of a 35-year-old man, or you have a very, very healthy brain. Now, I was very emotional in that moment because I was expecting just the opposite. And he said, you can see, because it shows the top, the bottom, and the sides. And you can see on the bottom where there is a little bit of damage. But he says it has nothing to do with your cognitive skills. It has nothing to do with anything else. And so that was great. But I got to tell you this. When it was all over, I went down to my car. I got in my car and I was driving home, and I didn't even make it to the first light before I had to pull over, and I cried like a baby because every time I stumbled over my words, every time I misplaced something, every time I misspoke or I did something stupid, I would always, in my mind, chalk it up to I had brain damage. And it wasn't true. So I've never been so happy to be wrong about myself. And that shift is what I want everybody to get. Any of the crap that you've been saying about yourself, and you're human, we all do it. Any of that crap, it's never too late to have a happy childhood. You can change it. You can program yourself. You can change yourself. And the beautiful part about everybody on this call here, you're all coaches and mentors and teachers and podcasters. And this is an opportunity for you, this moment in time, to do what others won't. And that is whatever your knowledge is in, whatever your expertise in, there's somebody out there that needs to hear it, wants to hear it. And if I'm going to put you on blast, I'm going to say you owe it to them to show them how they can be at their absolute optimum. And again, we're podcasters and you're speakers and things like that, but at the very least, show up as that person, and your energy, just like the transfers of energy in the car, will change people as well.
Wow. Yeah. Well, we started with an amazing energy. Joseph, you brought tremendous learning. I've been watching the comments. Everybody we're so grateful to have you on. I'm so grateful as this is a community that we do this together to really bring this message out. For myself, the Mentor Studio, and all the mentors on this. I honor you and Mary for what you've done around the world, the lives, the differences that you've made. And thank you so much for spending your time with us, because your time is just as important as ours. So everybody, please give Joseph a big thunderous round of applause.
Thank you.
I
can hear you. I can hear you.
And Joseph, again, thank you so much. Again, if you ever need anything from us, we're always here too. We're here to make a difference, change the world, and just make it a better place every day. Thank you again for being with us tonight.
My pleasure. Keep doing what you're doing. And everybody, remember this: life is exactly what you dare to make it, and fortune favors the bold. So keep being bold and step it up and make it happen. I love you guys. I appreciate you. Thank you, Mary. Thank you. I love you. And I will talk to everybody later.
Love
I'm
you.
out.
Thank you, Joseph. You're great. Give him another round of applause. Wonderful. So, group, thank you all for being on tonight. We'll have special guests through the years, ones that you normally won't catch time with. And let's thank Mary, because she's going to bring us some pretty amazing people. I also wanted to thank those of you who have joined us in the Elite Mentoring Program. It just means you're just on a tighter journey with us and you're really following through with that. So for those of you on, give yourselves a round of applause. And these are the kind of people we're going to be working with intimately. So it's going to be quite a program as we build it as we go. We do have, actually, in the first group, I've got 2 spots left. So if anybody is interested, just private message me. I'll tell you what it's about. See if you want in and see if it fits for you. We don't take everybody because it's just not the right time or not the right place. But if that's something that you're still on the fence about, just make it happen and frickin' talk to me. It's amazing, right? The last person who just joined was so perfect and could easily make it work and happen. And I've got many ways to do this. Don't doubt yourself. Just do what he just said. Take the journey and let us at the Mentor Studio be with you on your journey to help you in any way. Mary and I are here to be of service. It's what our life has been about. It's what everything we've ever done. And we really appreciate everybody being on the call. We have no call next week because it's a 5th Monday. So take that time. You can always text with me. You can Facebook chat. Get on Facebook too. Start, typing to each other. Make sure you know each other are there. Make sure you fill out the forms we sent. And then, of course, we start April again with a big bang, and we just continue on from there. So for myself, the Mentor Studio, Mary Glorfield, and everybody else on here, we wanted to thank you so much for being on. Mary, thank you again.
Thank you. I learned so much, and I've known Joseph for almost 30 years, and I still learn.
I know. And I learn every day from you, Mary. And I'm actually really excited to the big events you're going to be producing this year in the U.S. and then internationally. We're talking big events, people on stage, and we're going to learn so much. And as Mentor Studio people, we're going to have a place to be there. So come volunteer, be part of it, and we'll do everything for you. So we're going to let it go as one, as we do. We're going to let it go as one. I know Misty's not here. Let's see. Lee, are you on here? Did I miss you or did you have to go?
I'm here.
There you are. Lee, go ahead, take us out.
All right, everybody. Unmute your mics. Give me a word for tonight.
Water, International Water Day.
Wow.
Magnetism.
Oh, Lord.
Magnetism.
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 I think magnetism. Let's magnetize love and positivity. Let's send off as one. Rub that energy together. On the count of 3, I want to hear magnetism. 1, 2, 3.
Magnetism.
Oh, you guys are awesome. Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you for hanging out with us. We'll see you in just a little bit.
We're honored that you invested time with us today at the Mentor Studio. Now, don't be greedy. Share this knowledge bomb with all your dope peeps on Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat. Actually, we'll even pay you to do it. To get the deets, please check out thementorstudio.com.